Hey folks, let me get my microphone here on stream. All right, I'm going to do a mic check here, make sure my signal is coming through clear. We'll do an intro real quick about what we got going on here today, and then we'll get to work for a couple hours. So let's see, mic check, 1, 2, 3. Let's see if I am coming through okay. Yeah, sounds like it's coming through A-OK. Excellent. Let me go ahead and start. I'll post here on Twitter and Reddit and all the things. And then, hey, how you doing? And then we'll get started here. So I'm going to go through my intro spiel here real quick while I'm tapping all the different, let's see, my boost signal stuff. So, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements. I illustrate them, and then I publish them online. I've been creating content for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition here for the past 5 years, and there are a slew of links in the description down below that go to DMsGuild.com that has a lot of the work that we've created that you can see on covers here, the Color Mana Spell Point variant rules, Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica, Theurgy, and we're actually creating the Spelljammer book Monday through Fridays in the morning right now. We're creating the artwork for that project. So once that's completed, that will also be on the DMs Guild. A lot of the stuff that I create is based around Magic the Gathering, since both Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons are both IPs owned by Wizards of the Coast. They had started creating some cross-product promotion works, one of which is the Odysseys of Theros, which is the Theros setting for Dungeons & Dragons. They have the Curriculum of Chaos, the College of Strixhaven, which is also a set from Magic the Gathering. And the first one that they did was the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. And that is it's the Ravnica setting, if you're not familiar with it already. So we're going to, we've been building a martial power system. We have these Color Mana Spell Point variant rules that we've had online for a few years that converts Dungeons & Dragons spellcasting to the 5 Color Mana Spell Point system, which is in Magic the Gathering, there's white, blue, black, red, green, the 5 colors of Magic, and there's artifacts and stuff that don't have any color that can be basically you can use any color with. But we get rid of the spell slots and we get rid of the schools of magic in generic Dungeons & Dragons and replace it with the 5 color mana system, a literal visual element that you can use to express how magic is created in your world. And it also has a philosophy alignment system built into it. If you're not familiar with Dice Try, he does amazing videos here on, I'll post a link to his stuff down below later, but he does amazing videos on societal and individual and organizational mentality and philosophies based on the 5 color magic philosophies. So you have different spells that use different color magic. When you get a spell point pool and you devote however much of your mana you want to each color, as long as you still have color left in your pool, you can cast those spells. Every time you cast a spell that requires, say, red magic, you're going to get rid of at least 1 point. You're going to burn at least 1 point of red mana, along with however much more mana you need to be able to cast a spell. First level spells, 1 mana. 5th level spells, 5 mana. 9th level spells, 9 mana. Anything that's 6th level or above, it requires all of the same colors. So if I want to cast a 9th level red spell, I have to use 9 red mana. If I want to cast a 3rd level spell like Fireball is a red spell, I only need to use 1 mana, and then the other 2 can be whatever I want. So high level characters, they have to really be picky and choosy about how they're building their mana pools to be able to support the huge spells that they can cast. But lower level characters, they can diversify their pool to be able to maximize their returns. So, hey, how you doing? So we've been developing this Martial Powers project, which is an alternate magic system for bloop. There you go. Oh yeah, I should finish my intro spiel real quick here, guys. Let's see, I just posted on Reddit. I'm a big fan of the Ravnica DMs Guild post. Oh, I need flair. Let's go with homebrew. And then apply, and then post. You gonna post for me, buddy? There we go. I'm a big fan of the Ravnica DMs subreddit. So I post stuff there. You can follow me on Twitter at Phil Kearney. Here you go. If you're still on the Twitter X platform, best way to support the channel is to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I am here 6 days a week live streaming, and I build something typically. Like when I finish my stream this morning, I'll start creating a small, like 10-minute vignette about something, and I'll publish that. I'll have that set to publish on Sunday. So I literally post 7 days a week, and I have multiple different art streams and development streams that I've been developing. Spelljammer is the biggest one that I'm working on right now. I'm expecting this to publish on DMsGuild next month. You can watch me building the artwork for the book and the page layouts Monday through Friday in the mornings. Saturday morning like this, I do personal projects, which is building the Ravnica Rubblebelt Westmarch-Platoon campaign that we can use to playtest the martial powers system. So that is, let's see. Yeah, so here's the martial power system. If you want to check out this document, you can check here in the description down below. Playtest content and early looks on my Patreon. You do not have to be a member of the Patreon, though if you are a member of my Patreon, you will have first rights to a seat during the playtest that we're building if it coincides with the day that you're available. So if we have too many people signing up through Patreon, then we'll do a raffle through Patreon, and then we'll let it backslide to the larger community if there's anyone interested. So here's the playtest content for Martial Powers. If you click there, you're here right now. Hi, guys. But if you click the Martial Powers button, it'll take you, it's a read-only document for you guys, so you can look and build stuff with this if you want. But again, it'll be a PDF that'll be on the DMsGuild. All the stuff that I publish on DMsGuild have extensive full previews. So if you open up any of those links down below, you'll be able to look at a PDF and see through all the stuff that I build, and hopefully you'll be excited about where we're going as much as I am. So the Martial Powers Project is a expansion of the color mana spell point variant rules. So just to reference those real quick, let's go down here to the 5 color mana spell point variant rules that we have here on DMsGuild. It is a set of books. Here, this is the first stream that we're doing for the playtest development, so I need to make sure we have a frame of reference for what it is exactly that we're doing here. So in that bundle, there's a revised 5 color mana spell list. And so this gives you basically the basic outline or tenets, as you would, of the different aspects of magic: white, blue, black, red, green. There's 5 aspects of those colors. Here's roughly what white means in Magic the Gathering. And that can be translated into mechanics or generalities inside of D&D, the D&D game space. Since the Magic the Gathering card game mechanics don't fully align with Dungeons and Dragons mechanics, you have to kind of look at what's the flavor that the cards are producing that translates into a mechanic in D&D 5e that's roughly the same flavor. So white, for example, aspects of white magic are typically like divinity, healing, light, protection, restraint. While black is like control, entropy, fear, soul, and darkness. But notice how like soul and divinity are like kind of the same thing, right? So then you have green, which is animals, healing, plants, nature, and spirits. Spirits, divinity, and soul, they all kind of have like this loose idea about consciousness and being beyond your own physical form, but they approach it from different angles, which is the philosophy of colors. But in D&D, that can translate into like the bless spell, for instance, could be tagged as divinity. You also see here that white is healing, and so is green, and green has a lot of nature and plants and animals, while red has earth, and I don't know why I don't have fire listed there specifically, but energy like fire and lightning and force effects, that's all red, which you can see down here in the damage types. This helps further fill out these aspects. So fire, like fire, force, lightning, and thunder, those are red damage types. If you're translating MTG card damage and descriptions of card effects into D&D mechanics. So you can see there's 4 different types of damage that are associated. Let's back that off a touch. There's 4 different types of damage that are associated with each color. Bludgeoning, piercing, slashing being, no color being just generic damage that anyone can deal. But then when you take this damage type and the aspects, the descriptive aspects of magic, and you blend them together, you create a 5-color magic spell list. And this is just all the stuff that's out of like SRD, PHB. If you're really interested in getting the full list, then don't mind me sponsor. If you pick up this full bundle, you'll get the full color list included with the core mechanics, and the core mechanics is $13. The full bundle with all these books included is $18. So yeah, you can grab all this stuff. You can look through as much of it as you want. This one's pay what you want, so you can buy that. You can grab that for free if you want. Spell Point Warlocks you can grab for free if you want. That helps further the original teaser trailer of it, the Color Magic Spellpoint staff preview. It has some magic stabs in it that use mana mechanics, but that's also pay what you want. So if you buy these things, it whittles down the cost further if you want to save some money. But you can just thumb through them. But if you want the full spell list, you buy the bundle. So there's my commercial for the day. Sponsored by me. But yeah, so you take those philosophies of magic, and then you now build this out to have a spell be associated with one or more colors. Like Fairy Fire is illusion and Fey type magic, which is blue. While Featherfall is a wind-based spell. I could argue that Featherfall is blue, which is wind, and green, which is nature, which could include like storms, wind, and stuff like that. So Featherfall can be cast as either a blue or a green spell. The level of the spell is the amount of mana that you have to spend. You have to spend at least 1 mana of a color that is devoted, that the spell is devoted to. Like Searing Smite, you could use a point, it's a first level spell. You could spend a point of white, you could spend a point of red, it's up to you. And then you can thematically decide how you want to express your character by the colors that they have in their pool that could tie to your character's emotions and philosophy as their alignment. So if you're playing a righteous defender of justice, you might choose Boros colors of white and red. White being protection, society, honor, while red is emotion and energy and aggression. So like you have like a paladin of vengeance could technically be a white red if you wanted, but could also be a black red. The vengeance driving their emotions, while black is a very eye for eye sort of philosophy color. So you can blend your colors to have the kind of, you can literally have your magic representing your character's attitude and philosophies by how they cast. If a spell isn't in the color that you want, you could spend downtime to research it so that you could learn shield instead of being a white spell. If you wanted to have nothing but red mana, then you could take spells that have the wrong color and then you could research them so that they are the right color. Or since say wizard can learn 22 spells, instead of spending one learned spell to learn Shield of Faith as a white and not be able to use it because it's not in the red pool that you want, you can learn it twice. One to pick up the spell and the other to choose whichever color you want it to be. So you can spend time and some gold and effort and create NPC downtime connections to be able to build out a spell book or prayers or a philosophy or training style to learn anything that you want in the color that you want as research downtime. Or again, if there's a number of things that you can learn or prepare, then you double the prepare so you know how to do it, and then you modify it to be the color that you want. So a sorcerer, for instance, if they wanted to sculpt their mana pool so it's nothing but black mana, and they have 7 spells, they could pick up one spell that's naturally black, and then the other 3 spells they could then have 3 spells from other colors. So you are hampering the full caster, knocking them down a few pegs in the variety. They can have the variety and the wide breadth options that they want, but they're going to have to pay for it one way or another. Which is one of the biggest problems with spellcasters in 5th edition is how flexible and open their lists are. By creating color restrictions or a different type of magic paradigm like this, you have constraints on you're going to need to have spells of the proper color for you to be able to fire them off whenever you want, as opposed to martial characters that can just pour in, that can just do their thing and they don't have to worry about it, right? Well, if you don't have a mana resource for your fighter, your barbarian, your rogue, how are you supposed to properly express them other than just I say that they have a black-red mentality? And you still have this disparage between the martial classes and the casting classes, because the casting classes basically can pick up a dozen feats that they can spend, like a resource spend feats, and they can pick new ones every day, and they can completely customize their action loops and their resources and their support options to optimize with the group, while the martial character is stuck doing the same thing every day regardless of what it is. So we built a mana system that allows you to convert all the different class abilities and stuff that are in the game into a mana resource system that we call powers. This is inspired by the Book of Nine Swords, as well as powers from 4th edition. So there's a total in this book alone, and there will be expansions in the future. There's currently 209 powers. 151 of them use mana, and the other 58 of them are basically cantrips that don't require any mana expenditure at all. You can just learn them and do them at will. We've spent 99 episodes before this one going through all the mechanics of this stuff, and if it's intriguing to you, again, this is something you can just read through. It's ready to go for playtesting from level 1 to 20. I just now need to build a campaign to put it inside of. But just to finish off this explanation that we're working through, all these, the barbarian, fighter, monk, paladin, ranger, rogue, they all use this color mana resource as well. Rangers and paladins already have spells, so they're already using color mana for the spell casting that they have. Where am I at? Here and here. Oh, no, I don't want to use this one. I want to go to the core mechanics book real quick just to show you the mana. So you have your full casting, half casting, third casting, and by the time you get to 20th level, a full caster will have 80 mana in their pool, and they can spend up to 10 mana at a time to throw a spell as upcasting. Half casters cap with 5th level spells and 40 mana to cast it, and like knights and tricksters, they cap at 4th level spells with 20 mana to spend. Again, it's 1 mana per level of spell that you're casting. As long as you have at least 1 point of the color that you need, you can cast a spell no problem. Whenever you take a short rest, you can completely change all the colors in your mana pool to be whatever it is that you want. When you take a long rest, almost all classes are allowed to swap out all the spells that you know. So in the martial power system, we have the artificer, ranger, and paladin, half casters, 5 ranks, up to 40 mana. Fighters, barbarians, rogues, and monks, those 4 classes. Barbarian, fighter, monk, rogue, and the warlock. They have the 20 point on a short rest and can also channel up to 5 mana in an ability at a time of the color that they need. So when we're building out, and then again, for the past 99 episodes, we've walked through all the different mechanics of all the characters, the conversions for all the subclasses, all designed to use the color mana system instead of like having superiority dice on a battle master. The battle master then just chooses which colors that he wants to be, and he chooses the powers that he knows. All the maneuvers from the battle master have been converted into 1 or 2 mana costing effects, and so the battle master gets like 3 superiority dice, and you spend 1 die for every time you use an ability. With this, you have a lot of mana, and you have all of the battle master abilities plus a shitload more, 209 of them in fact, that you spend a point of mana on, and then you when you spend a point of mana, if that power needs a die roll, then you'll have a pyro die, which is a d6, a d8, and eventually a d10. So these are the basic mechanics of it. You use a power, you spend mana to do it. If it requires a die roll, you throw dice with it. However much mana it is that you're spending is going to allow you to throw more dice. And so these are, I've been playtesting this with my home table from level 12 to 20, and it's been going great, but I haven't had a chance to test it at the low levels. So I want to build a campaign so that we can have we can playtest this stuff from level 3 to 7. So right now, we are, having finally gotten done with all the intro stuff, we are creating a Ravnica Rubblebelt. This is down here on page of our playtest document, we're down on page 85. So when this thing publishes, it's probably going to be 120 pages with like 50 illustrations in it, and it will be it'll be added to the Color Mana Spell Point Variant Rule Bundle, so you can use it with Magic. So if you pick up all this stuff, you're going to basically get a 50% discount off of it off the top if you want. If you think this stuff is cool and you want to support more shenanigans like this, buying my books is the best way to do it. So thanks a lot. Let's see. So we're building the Rubblebelt. So if you aren't familiar with Ravnica, it is, I think they call it a unit. I don't remember the name of the word, but it's the whole world is covered with one giant city. It's a mile thick. There's an ocean, and there's like touching grass is like a mile underneath the daylight. They call it the Undercity. All this like a mile worth of compressed building into dark, deep dungeons that are occasionally carved out and tunneled out to grab all the material resources that have been compressed over time, and they carve it out and they just build something on top of it, continuing to grow towards the sun, away from the core of the planet. Another fun feature of this world is that there are these things called worms, W-Y-R-M. Think Dune, the giant sandworms from Dune. These things are 20 miles long, and when they go on a migration or a mating season, they'll rise to the surface and they will just level everything, all the city that gets built up. When these worms sprout up and they just crawl across the land, they destroy literally everything in these massive tracks of worm crawl, and they're called rubble belts because they look like belts of rubble or belts of ruin that are laid down across the world by these huge worms surfacing, doing whatever they do on the surface, and then sinking back down into the earth. And then they rise up again sometime later. So what'll happen is, this is a 20-mile long worm that's roughly a half mile wide, and you get 30 or 40 of them that surface and then roam together for a while before they fall back underground. They will destroy hundreds and thousands of miles worth of terrain, and it takes decades, potentially centuries, to rebuild it. So during that downtime of that lack of infrastructure and neglect, nature takes it back over. And so forests, swamps, jungles, deserts, all this stuff just brews up from this wasteland ruin that gets just basically covered over with sedentary, new tarmac forms. It gets earthed, and then plants start growing up out of it. So there's large pockets of mega infrastructure, super cities, that are separated by these huge tracts of rubble belt that separate different districts and zones from each other across the planet. These rubble belts are ruled by, are either completely unruled and just savage wildland, fit for any other campaign that you may have out there, because there could be entire societies that brew up in the hundreds of years that are off the grid, that are just doing their own thing in these giant rubble belt wastelands, knowing that there's these mega cities way off in the distance that could someday try to come in and steal resources or reclaim resources from this place. But in the meantime, the non-civilized races evolve and take over this land, hunt it, develop their own little kingdoms, and underneath all of that is a mile worth of undercity that has just been buried underneath the wilds that have grown over it. So anytime you're walking through this terrain, you could find an orifice that leads into the Underdark that could be a massive Senate structure from 7,000 years ago, or it could be a forgotten research lab from the Senate Combine when they were doing early experiments on blending frog and dinosaur DNA. Or you can find a lost Orzhov temple that's haunted by angry spirits that have a vengeance against the current ruling monarch, or the whatever they call him, the Popple, that's currently running the Orzhov Syndicate Church. There could be these abandoned ghosts that have an axe to grind with them, that if only they could find some way to seek vengeance against them. All these things can be literally underneath the surface of this forest or swamp or whatever. So if you are having a campaign that is traversing this rubble belt space, you have on the top side toppled buildings, ziggurats and abandoned structures that are basically abandoned ruins or fortresses. And at any point there can be a crack in the earth that will lead down into apartment complexes or civil spaces or military compounds or research laboratories, zoos, prisons, from anywhere from 200 to 2,000 years ago, that can be filled with magic items, forgotten enchantments, information, spirits like we're talking about that you can lore delve with if you can find them. So the idea of this campaign that we're doing, a Ravnica Rubblebelt campaign. Let me get down to that content here again. The Rubblebelt campaign, the Ravnica Rubblebelt, and we'll call it a Westmarch-Platoon campaign. Okay, so there's a couple components going here. I've just spent a little time talking about what Ravnica is. It's that Magic the Gathering world that covers a city, and the Rubblebelt is the ruins that get scarred across by the worms that destroy the cities in Ravnica. Just to give you a little bit more information about how this ties into color mana, there are 10 guilds. Here, let me go to here, and let's go look at the Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica book. So there's 10 guilds that basically rule or basically have like a senate that controls the world of Ravnica. There's 5 colors, and if there's 2 colors each, those combine into a combination of 10 different factions. And hold on here, let's scroll down to Ravnica, the 10 guilds of Ravnica. If you're not familiar with them, here are your color combinations. There's only 10 color combinations. If there's 5 colors and you combine all of them into pairings, there's 10 total. There's a lot of color philosophy that goes into it. I highly recommend Dice Try's channel. I am a Patreon supporter of his. Dice Try has by far the deepest, best philosophical analysis of the color combinations, both these and others, on YouTube, period. Amazing channel, great guy, big fan of his. So there's these 10 factions that basically control the magic and also society and the city and like the military and governance and laws and contracts and civil services. They're all divided between these guilds, and each of these guilds controls 2 colors. It's like the Azorius Senate is white and blue. So they are basically, blue is about finding perfection and improvement, while white seeks harmony and society. So these two together, the Azorius Senate is obsessed with creating the perfect coding of laws to have in Senate to dictate behavior to maximize harmony in the world. To oppose that, there is, say, the Gruul clans, which are red and green, that are incredibly passionate about being natural and free from artificial mental and societal constructs. So they are very, very, very opposed to the ideas that Azorius has about structuring and quantifying and measuring and maintaining and optimizing how people live. The Gruul clans are emotional, intuitive, instinctive creatures that follow their heart and their emotions and don't plan things ahead. They trust that they're being led to the destiny that they're meant to perform in their role in nature. So there's all these interesting twists that these different clans have. Like Azorius has become corrupted to the point where they have mind police that if they don't like what you're thinking right now, they could arrest you. While the Gruul clan have become eco-terrorists that basically destroy anything they can get their mitts on made by these other guys. Not surprising, Gruul clans hide in these rubble belts, or if they just want to be left alone, they migrate to these rubble belts where they can have hundreds of years to be able to prosper, raise their kids, enjoy their life, free from all the bullshit that all these other clans try to impose on society. So the Rubble Belt is going to have one major player in it, which is going to be the Gruul clans. So they are a default rival / antagonist to the campaign, because your characters are going to come from all the guilds that aren't the Gruul clans. And so the way that I think we're going to do this is your team gets stranded. Like you're on an ornithopter or a carrier ship, and you're traversing the world from like from one mega city to another, and you have 1,000 miles of Rubblebelt between you and there, and at some point something goes wrong, and your carrier crashes. So there is your team and a shitload of NPC civilian types that are basically stranded in the Rubblebelt, and the Gruul clans are scouting, hunting, and defending territories inside of this Rubblebelt from each other's clans, as well as from intelligent monster races like ogres and giants and ettins, as well as, like, say, kobolds, lizardmen, and other more exotic creatures as well. And then there's all the constructs, like machinery constructs, like artifacts, sentient artifacts that have no purpose or have forgotten what their purpose is for, and all the Underdark abomination creatures that are thriving in the Undercities buried underneath the Carmack that can find their way to the surface to do whatever. Vampires and ghosts and lycanthropes and a very wide array of standard D&D stuff framed inside of this Rubblebelt theme, and all of them have this devotion to a color. So as you so the idea is the team gets wrecked, stranded in the Rubblebelt. A platoon campaign, for those that don't know the term platoon, what that's referring to, platoon is a squad or group of NPCs that are a resource. And players equal random characters that are chosen from the ranks of the platoon to adventure. So the way that we're going to frame this is that, like, if this ornithopter crash have non-combatant civilians that need to be protected because you've crashed your ship 700 miles into a Rubblebelt that has no infrastructure, no resources, and your craft is destroyed, so you have no communications to say, hey, we're lost. It's going to be 20 days before anyone starts to think there's a problem. After that 20 days, they're going to come out and look for you, and that is the motive of the campaign, to either survive long enough to have a search mission potentially find you and be ready to be found, or to find old ruins that are still serviceable enough that you could potentially use your own mana supply to tap and spark a battery to get a communications relay up so that you can send signal to home base that, hey, yeah, we survived the wreck, we're stranded here, send help. And that could create all sorts of fun scenarios of, like, for example, if your team gets TPK'd, then there could be another ship that comes in to try to rescue them. But ideally with the platoon, if your character gets killed, you just recruit a non-described NPC in the platoon, because there's going to be non-com civilians, there's going to be caravan guards, and then there's scouts. Hey, how you guys doing? I'm kind of on a ramble kick here, so you guys are welcome to chatter at me as much as you want. But I'm basically going to be on a tear here for probably the next hour or so, because I've got ideas about what I want this campaign to do, and I'm just kind of hammering out ideas and thoughts about them here with you guys. This is like the first time I've chatted about it a little bit in my Eberron streams on Mondays and Thursday nights, a little bit during my Spelljammer streams in the mornings, very little during the Martial Powers mechanic development during lunchtimes and during the week. But this is the first time I'm really trying to consolidate those ideas, because this is my Saturday morning mission for the next, probably till the new year. So welcome to the mix. Like, subscribe, bell icon, blah blah blah. So there's 3 roles in the platoon, right? Since the ship crashed and there's survivors, gather whatever measly resources you have. We now need to hunt for, let's say, 30 people. 30 people, yeah. But it's not specific. We don't want to grind down to the specifics of any one of these people. They're just the caravan, the refugees, the survivors. They're an ambiguous, vague resource pool that your players can pluck a character from. Like if your character dies during the playtest game, who cares? You're just testing shit anyway. If you come with something completely different next week to play something totally differently, I would encourage that. Don't fall in love with your character. This is a playtest, so I want as much variety as you can tolerate, so we can just see how different stuff hits the wall together. On 12th to 20th level, it went great, but that was also a structured campaign with the same characters, but they got to swap out abilities, so we had a good chance to see a lot of stuff at really high-end play over a number of months now. But I haven't tested it at the low end of the spectrum. So I just want to make sure that it plays well, it's fun, that people that are in the playtest, that they get the mechanics, that they're not too complicated, that they get how it works, that it's intuitive to use. And if it isn't in any of these aspects, that's a chance for us to improve it so it's more easily digested, so you can lean into the narrative and the ludo-mechanical narrative of how the color system and the martial power system complements your character as an individual and how they can narrate how they interact with the world. That's the goal. To have a dynamic mana-based system that lets you lean into the character's personality that you want to portray expressed as different colors. So each character will have 2 colors, and you'll be able to devote some of the powers. Like, so there's 5 disciplines of power, right? Some of them don't require any color at all. Those are like the cantrip effects, and they don't require mana, so just go ahead and have at it, Haas. It's just narrative magic. But there's 5 major disciplines that do spend mana, which are exploits that modify dice rolls. There's maneuvers, which are like spell-like effects or like psionic abilities and things, as well as like battle master maneuvers. You can either use a standard action or a bonus action or both to trigger these different effects by spending mana on them. Reactions are like they sound. You can either like re-roll a saving throw or make an opportunity attack or like counter spell something, whatever. It's reactions. Strikes are modified smites. They replace the divine smite and all the smite spell systems, as well as a lot of the ranger stuff that you get from subclasses. You spend mana, you deal extra damage, you trigger a condition on the target that you hit. Kind of like stunning strike, but like 30 different versions of stuff. And then there's sustained effects, which are concentration auras that you channel and sustain concentration on a mana effect. And you can stack effects up to the maximum rank of power that you can channel. So at low levels, at 3rd level, you can only maintain concentration on 1 point of mana at a time, which means only 1 first rank mana effect, like power armor, for instance, creates a force shield like mage armor is a spell, like as a DC 13 or whatever. This power system allows you to have a more robust form of power of this like mage armor. It's like an enhanced effect. And there's like a power shield, which is also a 1 mana concentration effect that while you maintain it, your shield gains stacking bonuses as well. So if you put both of them together at 5th level, you can maintain concentration on both power armor and power shield and really ramp up your armor class, but you have to maintain concentration on them. So there's risk and reward to these aura effects that you plant onto yourself, but for each point of mana, you can plug in a level worth and you can stack them together. Like haste is a 3rd level effect. You could, if you were 17th level, you could put haste on yourself for 3, power armor and power shield together, and get the +2 bonus from the haste. So you could have like a massive armor class and additional action economy for 5 mana combined, but now you have to maintain concentration on 5 mana worth of auras. And there's rules about that in here that's part of the playtest that should be pretty enjoyable, because I've been using it at my home table for the past 5 years, and it's a really great risk-reward system, which we'll get back into eventually. So there's these different effects. There's the 5 different disciplines, and so you pick one discipline, and you can use mana for either color. So like say you wanted to make like say you choose let's say you're playing Boros, white red, right? So you could choose exploits and maneuvers to be white. You could choose reactions and strikes to be red, and then you could decide that sustained are both white and red. So when you sustain a first rank sustained power, you could spend a point of red or you could spend a point of white. It doesn't matter. If you devote, like let's say at 1st level you have, and every time you gain a level, you can switch what your devotions are. So right now, you decide that, say your exploits are white and your reactions are white, and you choose your maneuvers to be red and your strikes to be red. And at first level, you choose not to have any reactions and you choose not to have any exploits, instead only having maneuvers and strikes. Congratulations, all you need is red mana because you have managed your pool to only require one color of mana. So you have optimized your color pool by limiting your choices. If you say you wanted to keep it all red, but there was a reaction you wanted to pick up, you could choose to, if you had the opportunity, you'd be able to research that reaction, that specific power. You could use any color that you want to with it at any time. It would basically become like sustained, that you can use both of your colors. Or you could choose to learn it twice. The reaction, the reaction is supposed to be white, but if you learn it twice, you can make it red instead. So you can change all the powers that you know when you take a long rest, and anytime you take a short or long rest, you can change your mana pool. So you have a lot of flexibility to recalibrate your pool to do whatever you want. And when you take a short rest, you can swap out one power that you currently have memorized or you have prepared. So when you take a short rest, you can swap out, like, I'm not going to be in combat. I don't think I'm going to be in combat while I'm here in town. When I finish my short rest, I'm going to swap out one of these smite powers, and I'm going to, like, say, pick up an exploit that's going to give me advantage on charisma ability checks. So when I'm haggling and trying to track down information about my contact, I'm going to be able to make those rolls with advantage. So I'm going to be more successful at it by spending mana whenever I try to do it. So that's like that's a really good way to like the Azorius police, the mind police, right? Spending mana on their cop beat as they're going around the community. They're throwing out mana to see if they're getting any pingbacks on any kind of law breaking that lets them then hone in on where they need to go to find what crimes made. It's kind of like Minority Report. They're like these precog wizards that are in the police stations that get these intuitions that there's something weird happening. Then they send out a SWAT team to go take care of it. That's a very XCOM style campaign that you could run. And then there's Dimir, which is black and blue as opposed to white and blue. Dimir attempts to control and manipulate information, while Azorius tries to reveal and purify information. So those two are at a constant war with each other, using blue as the common ground, and then as white versus black. So you have all these really cool little small dynamics that you can have the different guilds fighting each other across these color themes that represent these different dynamics and different political points that you can frame a campaign around. So when you're building your mana pool here, you're going to have the two colors based on the guild that you like, and we'll provide guidance for that if you're interested in the playtest and you don't know what to do. I'd be happy to dive into that stuff with you guys. And I'm setting up a Discord for us to have those conversations, so that's almost ready to go. But these five, so you devote your colors to whichever disciplines that you want, and then you choose how many powers from each discipline that you need. If all you want are maneuvers, if you want to play a Scion, for example, a psychic character, all you do are pick maneuvers, and so you're using your mind magic with standard actions and bonus actions to pop mana to create different effects or impact other characters. If you just want to be a barbarian rager, then you can take sustained effects to buff your rage, and you can take strikes so you can deal more damage, and maybe that's what you focus on. I mean, there's a ton of different ways you can play it. We're going to make a bunch of sample characters that people can just pick up and use at will because they're pre-built, and we'll go after these different themes to see how you can express characters differently with the colors that you choose and the disciplines that you use to complement those. So we'll have a really fun narrative ludo mechanical framework for us to build these character narratives around. And that's what we're trying to do. You can come in with your own character, or you can just grab one of our prefabs, but you have this pool of the survivor caravan that's stranded at the shipwreck in the Rubblebelt, and you either have to survive long enough to be found by a search mission, or you have to find a way to alert home base that you are alive, and yeah, here's our coordinates, send help to pick us up. And then you survive long enough to make that happen. So the campaign is you moving across the Rubblebelts in search of something that you can hole up in and defend yourself against while you wait to be rescued, or you try to find the resources and things that you need to be able to contact home. And it's an adventure, of course, so as you're going through these different areas, you're going to run across different threats, challenges, creatures, factions, rogue NPCs, antagonists, and potential protagonists, people that you can maybe align with to give you resources or safe places that you can use as a base of operation as you move out. We could develop bigger things that are happening. Maybe your ship crashed there because of something that you need to investigate is happening. So hopefully we'll be able to develop a number of interesting plot points that give you motivation to move from one area to another. So you have this caravan of all these NPCs that are moving across the land or trying to find someplace safe to be. And so there's the three roles. You've got the non-combat civilians, which is the background resource of the caravan, like just the NPC, the rabble rousers in the background, the people that you're defending. Then you have the caravan guards, which are character sheets that are in queue that can be used by the players if we're having a defend the caravan encounter, or if your character dies and you need to replace it, you can pull it from the caravan guard roster, which is also nondescript. We don't identify what the colors are. We don't identify what their class is, their race, their subclass, or any of the powers that they have, other than a stack of prefabricated character sheets that you can just pull one off of. It's like, I'm now going to be Bob, the Rakdos barbarian. Okay, let's get after it. I'm already part of your caravan, so I'm in your platoon. So your character, your players' characters automatically trust and work with whomever it is that gets recruited from the caravan resource, because they're an ally. They're part of the team. If you're not a caravan guard and you're not in this holding pattern of being activated, the players are assumed to be the scouts. So the scouts are the ones that are going to move ahead and find the best course of travel that's going to offer the least amount of threats to the caravan as you advance the caravan across the terrain. If you can find a safe place to hole up with the caravan, then the scouts have an opportunity to range further away from the caravan safely to find a longer route, or maybe there's like something that's grabbing their attention that they want to investigate, but they don't want the caravan too close because there could be risk. You could park the caravan and then advance your scouts away from it. But the goal is to move the caravan across the Rubblebelt to different points, and you're defending that Rubblebelt, or you're defending that caravan with your platoon, and your characters are the scouts. Or if you have, so I'm thinking how to put this. I'm thinking there's basically two two modes. Let's go down here. One is scouting, and that is moving ahead and clearing threats while creating creating a path for the caravan to traverse. And then two, the other is caravan defense. Equals the caravan is under attack and it must be defended. So what I'm thinking is, as you're moving through, random encounters that are not resolved by scouts threaten the caravan. So as you move into new territories, the scouts need to make sure that they can lock down or remove any threats that could be posed to the caravan as the caravan traverses the space, since there's going to be non-combat NPC resources that can basically be stolen by creatures as food, or as rival clans or whatever as labor. So you can lose your caravan, and then you'd have to go on a rescue mission to reclaim it. Maybe there's a third mode, and then hidden mode, hidden third, rescue equals your caravan is stolen and you have to reclaim it. So random encounters that are not resolved by scouts threaten the caravan. So that would mean that there's 2 scouting parties, 1 PC, 1 NPC, 1 caravan. So those are the 3 aspects. You want to have 2 scouting parties, 1 controlled by the PCs and the other one NPCs. So if you're in the unlikely event that your caravan is stolen and your team of scouts gets wiped, you could then player transfer over to the alternate scouting crew, the alternate scouts. That would then be a non-defined number of NPCs that you can then peel off of as a sub-platoon to feed your characters while you're attempting to recover your main caravan platoon. Hopefully this is all making sense so far. So what we want to do is we want to structure. So the structure is it's kind of a hex crawl style setup, moving from space to space. Each space is a random terrain. Each terrain has a different set of random threats. Threats, creatures, traps, hazards. There may be a way for us to further define. That's a double A. Double A's are no good. There we go. Hazard? No. There we go. Okay, so traps are different from hazards because like hazards are like environmental thing, like the floor is lava. That is a hazard that you may have to say spend mana so that you can have step of the cloud, so that you can hop from like one 20-foot brick to the next 20-foot brick, like jumping across the lava. That would be a hazard that is strictly there to sap resources off of your character so that they're spending mana, so it triggers them to have to take a short rest and choose between traversing the hazard easily or having more mana available to fight whatever it is that you're going to end up running across. So creatures equal combat. And social. Traps equal exploration. We'll call it combat as well. Combat and exploration, and hazards are most likely going to be exploration focused. That's a general idea. So we want to make a so how do we want to build the Rubblebelt? So we know there's, let's go to, I'm not going to use a hex, I'm going to use a square grid because I like squares. D&D, for the most part, operates combat and exploration mechanics in the squares. If you've checked out my Spelljammer stream, you know that I do ship combat at 50 and 500 foot scale combat using the same 5e grid scale mechanics that you already know how to use. So I shy away from using hexes. So that's why I want to call it a Rubblebelt Westmarch campaign as opposed to a Rubblebelt hex crawl. But it's essentially, it's basically a square crawl. So there are, let's go to MTG, mana, symbols. Hey there, big guy. Rubblebelt. There's 5 colors. White, blue, black, red, green. plains, islands, swamp, mountain, forest. These are the 5 land types that exist in Magic the Gathering. Can you see where we're going here? When we build our crawl, whenever you're in a square, D5. Or a D10 divided by 2. D10. I rolled an 8. So the first one's going to be red. So when you crash, you're going to appear in a red. Say this is the first one you're going to start in. You're going to start in a red. You're going to start in a red square. Whatever is we decide are the threats that exist inside of a red square. Those are the threats that you're going to contend with when your ship first crashes. Your initial encounter will be something investigating the crash, and that something is going to be red themed. I think what we can do is, what I want to do is start parsing out ideas about how I want to frame this. So I know that let's pull some colors over here just to make a quick palette. Black. I have no idea if this is interesting. Oop, I just locked up, so I'm gonna have to close out. There's a software conflict between the OBS tools and Adobe Suite, and Adobe always loses. So occasionally I have to reboot the program. Luckily it allows me to save without issue. Why? What the? Something weird happened. That was weird. All right. Red. I'm colorblind. And let me just say how much I appreciate how easy it is for me to distinguish the the grayscale gradients between these different sets. This is 100%. This is like on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe on a scale of on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being white and 0 being black. This comes in like around. Maybe like a 7 or an 8. This is more like around a 5. This is like around a 5 or a 6. While this is like around a 2 or a 3. So you got like 0, 2, 5, 8, 10. It's very easy for people that don't see color to be able to distinguish one of these from the other. It's almost impossible for me to. Like I wouldn't mistake green for blue or green for red or red for black. There's enough gradation, like grayscale value difference between each color, that even someone who doesn't see color at all can easily distinguish what each color identity is simply by how dark it is, which is something that has always, I've always loved that about Magic the Gathering because of my own visual limitations. It's always made me very happy. So that's just a quick aside, just me voicing some appreciation for a really well-built system. So let's see, we have how do I want to map this out? We know that you can basically travel 24 hours in a day and not take any fatigue. And if we were to have, like, if we were to go square by square, that would basically mean crossing from one square to the next would be 24 miles. If that's the size that we had. If we were to take this and want to zoom in a level, like maybe we wanted to zoom in, if we were to, I don't know, like if we were to zoom into like a 4x4 grid, and if this was a 24 mile grid, then this would convert into a 4x4 grid. So what, each of these would be 6. If this is 24, let's zoom in a little bit more. If this is 24, then this is 6. 6, 6, 6, 6. 6, 6. We're not going to worry about angles and diagonals. Some people like hexes more because a hex has more uniform distance from hex to hex, right? So you have a hex map like this, right? Is that how we do hexes around here? Right. So that's what your hex... Here, 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 here. This is your hex, and it doesn't matter which way you go. It's always going to be roughly the same distance that you move. The only problem I have with this system is that if you want to move direct east, you have to wiggle step down here, and then you have to wiggle step up here like that. You can't just hop from here to the next one to the west. But north and south, you can hop directly from from hex to hex. So each system has its flaws. I just think for universal navigation that squares work better than hexes, even though you could complain that diagonal movement is further than up and down movement. It's easier to walk that off than it is to say you have to move 2 hexes to move directly west. Otherwise, you're going to skittle step southwest and then northwest, and now your 2 hex of off west steps gets you a half hex further west. It's broken. It's broken, just as broken as squares. It's just that squares are easy to scale, and I think more fun to map because of, you know, the 5e mechanics in general. So if each of these squares is 6 miles, and you can move 3 miles per hour at normal movement speed, then to move from one square to the next, that would be 2 hours, 4 hours, 1, 2, 3. So that would be, my brain is breaking. 24 hours. Oh, that's right. It's 24 hours is and it's 8. Is that right? It's 24 hours and 8. So you'd have 8 hours to cross. So it'd be what, 1, 2. That doesn't work. 3, 4, 5, 6. That doesn't quite work out. The numbers line up, but the timing doesn't. How do I want to resolve that? We did a 3x3 grid. This would be 8, this would be 8, and this would be 8. It'd be 2 point something and 2 point something. Wait, hold on. That's right. If I'm outside the square, moving into this square, it'd be 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. That actually works. 6 hours. Yeah, so a 4x4 grid is proper for 1 day travel from grid to grid. We can then further break down each day of grid travel into 4 set. And each 2 squares that you move, you could potentially take a short rest. So you'd have 2 squares and then 2 more squares. You have 2 short rests and a long rest. That's how D&D is supposed to span. Start here. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. And then long rest into the next. Short rest, rest, long rest transition. No, because then you're putting a short rest against a long rest. How do I want to pace that out? It's an hour. Okay, so it's 6 miles, so it takes 2 hours to traverse a space. What if instead, what if we made it an 8x8? This is me designing. Hopefully this is entertaining to people. But this is part of the job. And with this, this might not be entertaining to a lot of people, but what will be useful is that once this thing's all parsed out, we'll have a log of how the campaign is supposed to operate. I wouldn't have somebody, hey, go watch 20 hours of design, but it will allow me to start creating extract conversations from this. Once I figure out all the mechanics here, I can start pulling pieces from it to have quick little guidelines for how the campaign is actually going to run. But so the idea is that as we move from square to square, we'll randomly choose what is the next square going to be. And if we have like on a day-by-day basis here, 24 hour, we can random in the color. And what I think I want to do about randoming, let's do Rubblebelt, 5 colors. Each square equals 24 miles equals 8 hours to traverse. Each square equals random color terrain. So I think I want to do it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Equals white, blue, black, red, green, and then current. Or same. So if I roll, so we know we're starting with, like, say, let's go over here to our sample board. If we know we're starting with red, and then I'm going to throw a d6, and I just rolled a 1. So if I'm going to move into this adjacent square here, let's just make it like there. Nope, that's too close to blue for me. That doesn't work. There, white. That works. So I rolled a 1, so this square, this next day of travel is going to be white themed. And then if we're going to zoom in, we can potentially, if this is going to be a white square today, we could potentially break down each one of these squares could be a different color as well, which sounds like a lot of work, but maybe like each play test, like maybe once a week we attack, like we have one square. So the idea is that when you enter, how can I break up the space a little bit more? We could break it up into zones like this. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be a 3 hours. This would be 12 hours. This is 24 hours. Or 12 miles, and then this is 3 miles, right? Interesting. So we can keep subdividing these things down. Like we have a general white theme, and then when we get into each of these, when we get into the pocket of each of these 4, we could potentially mix up the colors. So is it going to be a pure white, or is it going to be like a blend of one color versus another? Yeah, we could do the same thing again. Like we could roll a d6. In this instance, it comes up a 4. So that would be this square would be white red. How would I express that? Maybe I do like an angle thing like that to show that it's white and red. I don't know how to express that yet. Maybe maybe we have like a zoom. So we'll have two maps. We'll have the daily map. Like we could do. We're going to call it a West March campaign, so we're going to decide that the direction of marching is going to be west. So like we'll have maybe we'll have a starting point here. Like the rules of the campaign is that you're attempting to go west because you know that's the way that you came from. So worst case scenario, you'll eventually find your way back to society by just heading west long enough. So for lack of a better plan, maybe just heading west. So anytime you move from, you can choose 1, 2, or 3 squares. So like we could do, I can do a D6 here. So I have 1, 2, and 6. So if we had decided that this initial block is going to be red, and we do a 1, which is going to be white, a 2, which is going to be blue, and then I rolled a 6, which is 6 means same, so that's also going to be red. Like that. So you can choose which of those 3 options you want to go into for the next day, and then we can zoom in to that particular square. And now we know that this is a red themed square in general, and so we can then maybe take like these individual blocks. Since you're moving from this square, you're automatically moving into one of these other ones. It's like if you move into this one, you'd start in this corner here. If you move into this one, like you could start in this one or this one. If you move into the central square, you could choose this square or this square. And if you move into this square, you choose this square or this square. And then your goal would be to march west. So by the time you get to the other side of whatever this is, you'd have, if you moved up to this corner here, you could choose from this square or this square. And so we do a color test again. 6 and 3. So 6 is same, so that would stay white, and 3 is black. So we would have that. And this is undefined, so then we could color test that. 6 equals same, and since the same thing that we're coming in from the direction, we'll go there. So we have a 2 white, 2 black, a blue, and 2 red so far on the board. And this is a day of travel, so you'd say, okay, we're going to do, and like maybe each adventure would be like 1 day of travel. And so when we get into that 1 day of travel, we're going to have this square, and then so you're going to start off in. Oof, man, I kind of like the idea of. Can I break this down? Can I break this down into triads? So it's a 9x9. So like if we had a 9x9 space like this, and this is 24 hours, and if we could break it down into smaller grids, if you're coming in from this way, you're here. If you're coming in from this way, you're here. If you're coming in from this way, you're here. So we'd be able to preset which direction you're coming in from, and then set up the smaller scale. So that would mean that would be 8 hours, 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 and that would be 8. These are all 8-hour blocks. No, 8 mile. These are 8-mile blocks that you would be moving through, and characters can typically move 3 miles per hour, so there's a disconnect there. But if we fudge it, we can just say you can move 3 of these squares per day, each square. Okay. Okay. So if I'm coming in from outside, short rest, long rest, short rest, short rest, long rest. See the cadence? D&D is designed to be 2 short rests and a long rest. That's what the system was designed to be. So short, long, short, long. I conquer this. So each square that we overtake is a third of your day, and every time you resolve a square, you can take a short rest inside that square because you've secured it. So the adventuring and scouting time is going to be the block, and you can spend as much of your mana while you're searching inside of this space as you want, because once you've resolved, if you resolve if you resolve that square, then you can take your short rest before moving on to the next one. Moving the caravan takes time too. So you park your caravan, and then you search your square. Once you've locked the square down, you can advance your caravan into that square. So it's going to take you it's going to take you a third of your day, or roughly 3 hours to explore this square. And then it's going to take you additional time to move the caravan into that square. While the caravan is moving into that square, you can take your short rest. And if you don't clear the square and you move your caravan into it, if you get attacked, your time is disrupted. You can't take a short rest. Or rather, you can't take a short rest until the caravan is defended. So if you do a good... I like that. So, let's see. Square. Square of terrain goes 24 miles. Sub-square. Sub-square equals 8 miles. And then you could push yourself, if you wanted to move more of these 8 mile squares than the 3 for each additional square that you take, that would be a forced march, which creates fatigue. So that makes sense. So those rules are in place. This actually makes a lot of fucking sense. As long as we just do 3 out. Yeah. So if we allocate 3 hours per square, then what can be done is you take, during the 3 hour, you will secure the square, which will include any hazards, traps, encounters, combats, anything that happens inside of that square will take that 3 hour block of time in a sort of meta space. So you have a 3 hour budget of time, maybe like every 3 hours. There's a chance that something from an adjacent square then moves into and challenges that square if you haven't secured it. So that means that surrounding squares could be threats when you move your caravan forward. So you could speed run across a square in one day, but you wouldn't be checking your flanks. So if you want 1, 2, 3, 4... time. And want to be as flexible as possible so you have as many moves and options on a gamification level as possible, because moving from one square to another is what triggers what threats your team. So we should have a random thing of how many threats are within a square. So it effectively takes 3 hours to search and resolve. Is it 3 hours? No, it's roughly 3 hours to explore and resolve any particular square. You can't move a caravan into a square you haven't explored. So the scouts always go first. Have to explore the square before you move the caravan into it. You don't have to move the caravan immediately when you finish. These are rules. Can't move the caravan into a square you haven't scouted. Yeah. You need 8 hours. Okay, so 24 hours per day, 8 equals rest. That leaves 16 hours open. Okay, the math is breaking a little bit. Let's see. Now we're back to looking at the 4x4, which would be 16 squares, 1 hour to explore each square. But that's too granular. It's too granular. That's the problem with that. I like the 3x3 because of that angle of approach that we were looking at for moving from square to square. But is that enough of a reason to play it that way? I want to say yes. So how can I break 16 into 3? Six hours of sleep, but 8 hours of long rest. And some species don't have to sleep at all. Let's see. Well, 16 hours is already considered a forced march throughout the day. So what if we whittled it down to 15 and each square takes 5 hours? That actually doesn't feel too bad. It's an 8 hour. It's an 8 mile block, taking 5 hours to explore that 8 mile space. That actually, and then you can automatically squeeze a short rest inside of that space. So it would be 8 hours equals a long rest. 15 hours. Let's just do that. 9 hours equals a long rest. 15 hours of exploration. Tile of terrain equals 24 miles. Three by 3 squares per tile. 5 hours equals explore 1 tile. Plus short rest at end. Yeah, that feels right. Each square equals 8 miles. 5 hours equals explore 1 tile. This is making sense. Short, and you get a short rest during that. Caravan can be moved into any explored tile at plus move caravan into so at the end of 5 hours. Okay, so when you say I want to explore, I'm going to move from red into this adjacent blue tile. If that's what we're going to choose to do, then it is going to be a basically a 5-hour block of time that you basically have to move from this square into this square. You'll take no short rests during that time. You'll either conquer this square and secure it, and then you can move the caravan into it, or you'll retreat from that square back to where your caravan is at. You got about 20 some odd minutes left today. I think we're building a decent foundation here. Where's my alarm? Do I have an alarm going or what? I don't feel like nope, I do not have my alarm going. Yeah, so you can explore a square, you can take a short rest and move the caravan into the tile during that 5-hour block. You have 3 squares per day. You can take on an extra square as a forced march, incurring exhaustion penalties when you do. We have a random way of determining which color each of these is. So the day, we'll have a day theme for a block. So let's erase this a bit. So far, so good. I'm tentatively liking how this is. I'm trying to build a toolkit as a DM that I don't have to break my brain trying to design adventure content for playtesting each day. So if I can create a random a terrain random generator per color, then I can just quicken some encounters and adapt it to the number of people that showed up and the level that we're playing at. We're going to start at 3rd level, and I think if we spend like 4 weeks per level, we'll have 4 different opportunities to feel how 3rd level feels, and then we'll move to 4th level, then 5th level, then 6th level, 7th level, and we'll see who shows up and plays along the way. So here's your start. Being a perfectionist, I don't need to be a perfectionist right now. But we start here and we move in, and we know that in this one it was red. So here's our red start. We know the general theme of this is white, then blue, then red. And so when we go into each square, we have a general. This scales up. This is a general red theme. This one has a general red theme. This one has a white theme. And this one has a blue theme. And this one has a red theme. So if we're filling in colors, okay, now there's also an issue of, let's see, one square, and then we subdivide each square, and each subdivision could be a sub-color of that square, but it's going to have the same general theme of the square. So we have a blue square here. So it'd be blue-white. True blue, blue-red, blue-black, blue-black, blue-white, and let's finish off the last three. 6, 3, 2. Same equals blue. Oh yeah, that's how we would do that. If we roll up, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then whatever the major theme of the color is the same color that pops in as. So if I roll a 6 here, it wouldn't be whatever the previous color is. It's what's the overall color of the larger hex is the same color as the subsquare, as well as a 2 is blue. So a 2 or a 6 would be blue. And this one, a 4 or a 6 would be red. Yeah. That makes sense to me. No, that's fun. I want to do another one. So let's build this one real quick. We know that the general premise of this square is going to be white. So we're going to do the first 3 rolls. I'm just going to roll a 3d6. So I get a 5, a 3, and a 1. So I know that 5 is green. So this one's green. 3 is black. And then 1 is white. So there's those 3. And then let's load up the next 3. 6, 5, 2. So 6 is white, 5 is green, and 2 is blue. So 5 is green, and 2 is blue. And then my last one, 4, 3, 3. So 4 is red and black, black. So red, 3 and 3 is black and black. And then we'll do the bottom square. Roll some 6-sided dice. I get a 3, 6, 2. So 3 is black. 6 is the same. Same as red is red. And then 2 is blue. And then another d6 for the center column. 2, 5, 1. So 2. 5, and then 1 is white, and then the last row, 1, 6, 4. This is a red square, so 6 is 6, and 4 is also red. So that's how these 3 squares look. So maybe Okay, I want elevation. So Ravnica is a city of skyscrapers and undercity, and the Rubblebelt are worms tearing up the environment. So you essentially, when you're looking at a city, right, you've got surface level, you've got the undercity, which is basically a chasm that leads to different sub levels, and then you also have skyscrapers. Skyscrapers are typically going to be bluish, blue or white, while Underdark, or the Undercity, is going to be black. That's the general idea of it. But then you could also have like water filling in these things. So you could have like all this water flooding the Undercities down in here into these layers where all sorts of like Swagan and Kutoa or Merfolk or whatever could be living down. You could have like a basement kraken. you could deck these things out, but there needs to be elevation. And like if you're so you could drop down into these substratas. Like if you have indication like there's an Azet fortress down in here that might have some sort of mana resources that you could use for like cobbling together a communication system. You might have a blend of blue and red in here to be like an Azet research facility that got buried a while ago, for instance. So we can start blending the colors together to be able to build those things out. Like we've got a black, blue, red, white, green. Oof, we got all the colors. All the colors in the hate bow in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. But the overarching theme of this square is white. It's like if we had, and then we can have like, and then if this is a skyscraper, right, that survived, it could have most likely white and blue energy associated with it, but like it could be toppled. So here's your, oh my god. So here's your 3x3 square. It's 24 miles. And then here's also a 3x3 square that's vertical. Holy shit. You see that? And we also have a 3x3 vertical descent. So we have even ground here, we have elevation here. Actually, let's just move this out of the way. What the fuck is actually going on? There's something really weird going on. What is going on? Something weird has happened. Are my channels fucked up? What strangeness is going to see? I'm could not use the erase because the target channel is hidden. Where are my channels? I hit a channel button and I don't necessarily know how to there it is. No, wait. What? Why am I getting that for both of them? Something's gone terribly wrong. I'm going to close this and try reopening it and see if it behaves, because I don't understand what's going on with channels. Fuck you. What the hell happened? forgot how to switch out of channels because I never freaking use them. Fuck you. I must have hit a stray button. Damn it. Photoshop, unhide channels. Click the eye icon next to the channel to show or hide that channel. Photoshop channel basics. There we go. Thank you. God, what a freaking trial. Why do you keep switching back? Ah. Okay. I was somehow creating a quick mask on accident. Neat. Well, educate yourself. Cool. That was easy. How frustrating. Let's see. Down here. Okay, great. So back on point. We are building this terrain here. So here is even ground. Here is upward. And here is downward, right? So I need an elevation change table. Oy, fuck. Okay, so that means we're going to add complexity, and that complexity added equals here. Yeah, there. Let's see. Up, even, down, same. Six, 5. 2, 3, 4. We'll assume we start on even ground. Okay, well, let's throw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So some colors are predisposed to having more elevation than others. Do we really want to get like really into the weeds of it. Like an elevated black doesn't make much sense. Black is generally going to be level or down, while red being mountains would be either like even or up. Oh, that's a really good point. So maybe we go elevation is white, blue, black, red, green, roll, that feels good. Uh-oh. 11:25. Okay, I only have a few minutes left, so let's finish building this out real quick. Black is going to be 1 up, 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 down, 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 down. Everything has a chance of being up or down. Do we want everything to have a chance of being up and down? Maybe we just have even. Yeah, down. Up, up, down, down, even, even, up, 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 even. Is flat a better word? Yeah, up, down, or flat. That feels better. And then red, up, up. Up, down, down. Red could descend. Green, I think it's going to be even Stevens across the way. Even, no, that's not supposed to be even, it's supposed to be flat. One, two, three, four that go up. One, two, three that go down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are flat. More up, less down. I think I'm okay with that. Yeah, okay, I can be cool with that. So then let's do a quick elevation breakdown, and then we'll be done for the day. When we come back next time, we'll start seeing how we can flesh out the hazards and risks of each of these squares. So I think we have enough of a foundation to be able to start looking at how we can visualize this. So, starting square first. Let's see, what is that, green? We got green 6, no, we got green 4. Green 4 is flat. Black 6 is down. And then, what is that, white? White 5 is flat. And then we have another 1, 2, 3. For white is flat. Blue 1 is up. And then red 6 is flat. And then next row, this is pretty easy. 2, 4, 2, black 2 is flat, red 4 is also flat, and then blue 2 is up. So when you enter the square, you're going to have higher elevation. Like if you move from start into this blue elevated square, that is up. Flat ground is flat ground, so you have the same, let's see, it doesn't take any extra time to move across a flat square. Difficult terrain takes 2 squares per square of movement that you use. So maybe if you're going to traverse, okay, so if you're going to go in an elevation up or elevation down, it'll take you twice the time, because it becomes difficult terrain for up and down. Unless maybe your ranger has natural explorer for elevated terrain, in which case your team would be able to move at normal movement. That might be a fun thing to add on. It could also be a power that we add on to be able to mimic ranger abilities, but like the ranger gets it for free. That's kind of a neat idea. Flat terrain equals 5 hours to explore. Up terrain equals 10 hours to explore. Down terrain equals 10 hours to explore. That works. I think that makes sense. Dungeons. Since the whole Underdark and the interior of skyscrapers are technically dungeons, whenever you're running across terrain, like whenever you run across heightened terrain, you'd either be able to traverse atop the terrain or find a way into the terrain to then cross that space inside of the structure to come out the other side of it, as opposed to traveling outside of the terrain. Flat ground has an opportunity to have dungeons that you can find that lead down if you want to find them. And down terrain is difficult. It takes twice the time to traverse it just because of the descent. And it also can automatically lead into dungeons inside of the space on the way out. Let's create another layer real quick, and then I'll call it done for the day. Because I want to get back into dungeons next week, and that kind of leads into the hazards conversation. So let's see. We're going to build another set here real quick. White, green, blue. So white up, and then we'll be done. A up, and then green 3 is flat, and then blue 4 is also flat, and then we'll do white, black, blue. 5, 2, 1. White 5 is flat. Black 2 is flat. Blue 1 is up. Next set, 2-1-1. 2-1-6. So 2-1-6. Blue 2 equals up. 1 green equals up. And white 6 equals flat. And then we'll just finish out the set. Let's just do the last 3 because they're fun. 2 red is up. Black 1 and black 1 is flat, flat. That's not too difficult to digest as information. 5, 3, 4. Blue 5 is down, neat. White 3 is up. White 4, no, that's blue 4 is flat. No, that's white. Yeah, white 4 is flat. And then the last 3 is, what is that? White, white, red, red. 3, 5, 5. White 3 equals up. Red 5, 5. It's flat, flat. And then we would iterate the next grids. So white, blue, red. This is your starting block here. Probably don't actually need to write in the numbers, but there they are. That's blue anyway. So blue, red, and then we'd be able to build out the next set of hexes for your team to decide how to traverse. And maybe like you can't tell what the next set of squares are going to be unless you actually are in an elevated square. Like you'd have to spend the time either in, like if you're like you move from the start into this square, if you spent time either in this or this, those are elevated squares inside of the tile. And if you're in an elevated space, you'd be able to see what is in the adjacent squares before you're actually moving, like before you get it. Like if you're adjacent to them here, you would know what the adjacent, like in any of these 3, you'd see what the adjacent square is here. Here, you'd see the adjacent squares here. Here, you'd see the adjacent squares here. These 2 here would see both this and this, but not this. But if you're in an elevated space, you'd be able to see all 3 of them. That sounds like a fun way to be able to give your team incentive to want to climb on the exterior of a look. Like when you move to a new when you move westward, one length of tile per day, you may want to invest a 10-hour block to explore the higher elevation. At the end of that exploration period, you would then have the general color of the next set of 3 tiles to choose from for you to then be able to traverse across, pulling your caravan across it. I like that. So, okay, great. So now we have the basic premise of how long does it take to move from one square to the next, how to determine what color and what elevation each one of the squares within a tile is, And given the color of each square in the color of the tile and the color of the square within the tile, that gives us the information about what its color is. So when we come back next week, we can start building. Maybe we can hunt for land types. Like this is a white square, so like white red, white black, white green, and white blue squares. We can look for different Ravnica land cards that meet the description of that dual color combination, and then start creating a description list of each color combination. And then we can start building out the monsters that would be in those color combinations, the traps and the hazards that you would face. And then we can then follow up with looking at dungeons as internal space subsets of those larger hazards and creating like 5-room dungeons using the same system of iteration. So this is a 2-hour block figuring it out. But if I were to flesh out these blocks, I could get a vague idea, probably a vague idea, of how each one of these tiles would sit on the map, and be able to break down general threats and hazards inside of each one of them, maybe like in a 2-hour block. So we'd be able to prep like the next series of tiles per day. That's not a bad thought. Anyway, I don't know if this is cool to anybody, if they think it's interesting, but I'm going to be spending time on this. If people think it's cool, I'll spend more time doing it on stream. If people don't think it's cool and I have everyone bouncing off of it and they hate it, then I just won't stream it, but it's still going to be. But I'll still come back and visit it with you guys so you know what it is that we have going on. But I like this design space, so I want to continue streaming this. I may be spending maybe 1 day a week at lunch doing this, 1 day a week doing the Eldraine monster conversion, and then 1 day a week continuing to build magic items and monsters inside of the Martial Powers playtest document. But all this stuff is at the back end of the document, which you can find here in my Patreon. You don't have to be a subscriber to access it, but that's what we've been doing. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of here for now, and you'll probably see a video posted by me tomorrow. So like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, ask questions, drop comments. I'll have a Discord up and running probably by this time next week. I will see you guys on Monday. Later.